welcome you to our fortnightly health program. They say health is wealth, and we should always aspire to have a healthy body. So, Mr. Dillon, why did you start promoting a natural approach to health?
Simran, first, let me thank you for inviting me to this program on behalf of HE Vision. And the reason why I started this program is to do with what happened in our family many, many years ago. And I was basically brought up by my sister in terms from the education side. And I lived in Australia and she was in the UK. Unfortunately, she developed cancer and we had to come back from Australia and try to deal with that issue. And for a while, we thought we won the battle, but unfortunately, then she developed even more aggressive form of cancer. And unfortunately, we lost the battle and she passed away. We did a lot of research, or even then, on the natural approach. And we felt that we were winning in the sense that when we used to diagnose it, it seemed as if from blue, she was turning pink again. She was recovering because we completely used a natural approach, even in her case. But we had very little time, so we lost the battle. And I remember her saying that, look, we know that you're going to try your best to save me, but if you can't, make sure you do save somebody else. And that, you could say, an idea in my mind that I must carry on. And then I began to do a lot of research, along with my family, on a natural approach to health, building the body's own immune system, body's own ability to fight cancer, to fight heart disease, to fight diabetes. And we found that was the best way to go because I studied clinics in Mexico, others who were doing things far more experienced because we were just learning. And they had over 70% success rate. When I compared that to the pharmaceutical industry, like they have their own approach, surgery, operations, chemotherapy, and I find that they only had a much less success rate. So it showed that the body's own ability to fight diseases is very powerful. It's a question of taking the right approach.
That's inspiring. Thank you. What is meant by building the immune system in dealing with illnesses?
In the course of finding out, Simran, I found out that the body needs 76 minerals, 24 vitamins in order to generate healthy cells. Healthier the cell, healthier the tissues, healthier the body. And once that's going to build the immune system. If you've got a strong immune system, you're less vulnerable to viruses, bacteria, and even diseases which can take a heavy toll, such as heart disease, cancer, because it becomes a holistic approach. And so my approach was called cellular health, building the body's own immune system. Cells are like a brick to a building. If the bricks are strong, the building will be strong, and same is the case for the human body.
And how does these methods differ from the approaches by the pharmaceutical industry?
Well, the pharmaceutical industry is controlled by the Federal Drug Agency, and in the course of my research, I found that way back in around 1926, J.D. Rockefeller developed the pharmaceutical industry because with the Industrial Revolution, there was a great need for the industrial because they're profit-based. They didn't want workers to take days off, and that will harm their profits. So he was in the petrol industry, and he developed the pharmaceutical industry that what I call suppressor therapy. Instead of curing the disease, he was basically suppressing the symptoms. But they did have immediate relief, like you might get immediate relief from a stomachache, from a headache, and therefore you may not take days off. And that was in the interest of industry. And for that reason, then he opened up many, many colleges in the United States and other countries as well, and developed the course which most GPs follows. And they have to recommend those prescriptions, which is like in their GP encyclopedia, you can say they're given that information. Whatever you recommend must be approved by the Federal Drug Agency, and that is what the GPs recommend. And that's why when people go with a natural approach, the GPs don't entertain that because it's contrary to their teaching and their experience. And also it's a condition that they cannot go outside those guidelines themselves.
And which method is more effective for dealing with illnesses?
Well, I believe even in the pharmaceutical industry, besides the profiteering side, a lot of research does go, a lot of medicines good, some medicines do get developed, and well, you have to take a complementary approach. That if it's, say, somebody's in severe pain, the natural approach takes a bit of time to build the immune system, and people go for some immediate relief. And therefore, it may be useful to try what the doctors give you, advise you, but you quickly phase out of that and start building your own body. And may your own immune system should take over. So you're less and less reliant on the drug industry and avoid it as far as possible. Because what happens is you go for one disease, they give you certain tablets, then you go for another, they give you other tablets, and all these chemicals in the end can even be poisonous. And you find the immune system gets weakened, people become more and more sick, reliant on the pharmaceutical prescriptions. Because what we need is the body's own strength, and that does take time to build up, as I said. And I noticed there were four things that are necessary. First and foremost, exercise regularly, at least 4 times a week, about 45 minutes to 1 hour a week, because that builds a healthy body as well. Exercise is very, very important. And the second approach, I feel, is food. Diet is crucial. What you put into the body is going to decide. Uh, if you put the wrong petrol in a car, the car's not going to function. And same thing, what we put out in the human body is going to determine how strong our body is and build cells, tissues, and organs, and so we get a healthy body. And I feel that approach is much, much better than relying on the drug industry.
What role does the environment play in spreading diseases?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because if you look at the growth of cancer, it used to be very rare because we lived in a very natural, healthy environment. If you take India, Punjab, for example, people used to rely on natural food, grown organically, grown with no fertilizers, no sprays, and that they had the nutrients in them. But as you could say, the capitalist type of farming was promoted, large scale production, that look, we need to make money, profit out of agriculture. People left that path. And when they grew sugar canes or wheat, tried to do as much crops as possible. So the fertilizers, the sprays became poisons and became a poisoned environment. And all that, and also the sulfuric acid that goes in the atmosphere, comes down the rain, goes into the soil. So nowadays, unfortunately, the foods are poisoned by a poor natural environment. And then there's a lot of this thing, eat organic, all that. Yes, those natural foods are good and they're very expensive. And yet at that time, they were the cheapest because that's what we were involved with. And if you take Punjab, for example, the spinach, the cauliflowers, and in this country, sprouts, all these green leafy vegetables and green vegetables are very important for the human body. And then berries, powerful antioxidants, black currants, raspberries, strawberries, extremely important for the human body. So by having a balanced diet of, we could say, good vegetables, lightly cooked, and berries in the morning, and then taking your nutrients from nuts, for example, walnuts, almonds, all nuts have omega fats in them. They're very important. Although there's a lot of propaganda that they got a lot of oils, but taken in moderation, all nuts are very good because anything that comes from Mother Nature is going to be beneficial for the human body. And anything that's artificial, such as processed oils and highly cooked foods, and all these big fast food chains like McDonald's, KFC, and they become addictive foods and they're extremely harmful. And that's why cancer, diabetes, all the diseases on the rise. And the biggest killer of human health is sugar. And look how much sugar is promoted in the confectionery industry. Whatever you have has got a lot of sugar. Cocoa Puffs, all the cereals that are promoted. And the formula should be 70% alkaline, 30% acidity. But we are taking more than 70% acid foods and hardly 30% alkaline. And that does a great harm and damage to human health.
In conclusion, what do you think is the best way forward to ensure good health among people?
I think the best way forward is to a complementary approach, rely more and more on the natural approach, less and less on the pharmaceutical industry, and a complementary approach. And if you do have to take medicine, then phase out of it very quickly and go back to Mother Nature. And that would be the best approach. And all evidence shows we've even come across basic cases where people said, oh, they've got cancer, they can't survive. And yet, when they've taken the natural approach, exercise, nutrients, stress is a big killer. Look at the heavy pressures families face, children's face. And stress actually causes many, many diseases. So we need a relaxed state of mind. And then we could take supplements. Vitamin C is extremely important. Vitamin E is extremely important. So if there's not enough vitamins or minerals being taken, although we should take them in moderation as well, we need 24 vitamins, 76 minerals. That's why pink salt, rock salt, whatever the natural things we used to, we never used to have white sugar, white salt. In India, we used to have good, which is basically similar to molasses, rich in iron and B vitamins. So that was important instead of sugar, pink salt, rock salt instead of white salt. And with the colonial process, unfortunately, we got bombarded by what served the colonial profiteering industries. Sugarcane's been grown everywhere, and cocoa, which is extremely healthy, but then chocolates. And the ones that produce those sugarcane or chocolates hardly get paid anything in Africa and all that, and it became a big profit industry for these big multinationals. And therefore, to promote their profits, they promote these things lots. And we are suffering, and you could say profits they may be making, but lives we lose as a consequence.
Thank you so much for your time and thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Simran.